2017. I'm Andrew Greenfield with the Life in Quebec show, and we're joined now by Johnny Clegg. Johnny, the White Zulu, thanks for talking to us this morning.
Pleasure.
Okay, Johnny, you're in the middle of your final journey tour. Why is the tour named as such?
I was diagnosed with cancer in 2015 in April. I had to go through a number of procedures and operations and chemo, etc. And then I went on tour again in 2015. And basically had to go back into chemo and came out in February 2017. I was put fully into remission, and I just said to my management, look, I don't know what the future holds for me. And if there was a time for me to do a final world tour, this would be it. So this is my final journey, mate.
Wow. You've been a fighter and an activist all of your life, particularly during the apartheid era in South Africa back home, and also for AIDS awareness and other things. You're now fighting a very personal battle, cancer, which you've just touched on there. How's it going?
I have obviously have up and down days. It's a mental set, it's a mindset, and it's taken me some time to find an angle, on my condition, which I am able now to actually, work very well with, and just, keep things in perspective. It's changed my life in many respects. I live each day for the day, and I don't have any sense of entitlement. I have no sense of expectation anymore. All I do is get on with the job. I really enjoy performing. I really enjoy having the opportunity to do what I do. I realize, I'm very lucky to have been diagnosed at the time that I was. There's a lot of positives in my story, and I tend to dwell on those more than the other side. I have very bad neuropathy in my fingers and my feet from the chemo. Destroyed all the nerve endings, and sometimes it's pretty hard to walk a distance or to dance for a long time. But apart from that, I feel pretty strong and pretty positive.
Good. Now your music has touched the hearts of millions of people around the world. We know this, and you've quite the following here in Quebec. Actually, you'll be performing here shortly. You're no stranger to Quebec, having played the Montreal Jazz Fest and Quebec City's Festival d'été, amongst other things. What strikes you about this part of the world and the people from Quebec in general, compared to other places?
Quebec has a fascinating history and cultural and political history. It's an enclave of basically settler community which arrived with a very strong French background and kept that identity and has fought and tried to maintain some kind of semblance of their identity. Identity politics is a huge issue today around the world. You can see it in Spain now with Catalonia. You can see it in many different countries. And I think they brought an accent. They brought, when I say an accent, I don't mean a language accent. I mean a cultural accent to Canada. And they give Canada a very special kind of flavor. This is actually a characteristic of all, I suppose, settler communities, is they leave their homeland and they basically land up in a foreign country as a settler community, and they have to rely on where they came from. They have to remember who they were, and they have to shape and define themselves in terms of that going forward. And so, it's just a very interesting area for me to look at when I come to Canada, because I find most of the rest of Canada very samey and very sort of, bland. I think also that there is a sense, of kind of marginalization, which the Quebecois experience from time to time, and it makes for very, very robust politics, which I enjoy watching.
Okay, we know that. Now, if you could describe Quebec in 4 words, what would those 4 words be?
I suppose it would be, the first one would be lots of snow.
Snow.
Good cuisine.
Yeah.
Home cooking.
Yeah.
I suppose also an attachment to the chanson, a type of traditional French songwriting. And just a very, very wild, beautiful, romantic, exotic countryside. It's a really beautiful wilderness there.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, growing up in a segregated South Africa during the apartheid era, you made music with people of colour. Why was that frowned upon at the time?
Well, basically because we had two kinds of apartheid operating in South Africa. First, an overarching racial one, where communities were divided into four racial groups: white, black, coloured, and Indian.
Yeah.
And then they were subdivided into cultural categories based on language and culture. And so you had racial and cultural segregation. And if you're culturally segregated, then you were basically not able to perform, with or perform other people's music because you were locked into your own cultural, I suppose, straitjacket.
Yeah.
So the upshot really was that I was interested in Zulu street guitar music made by the migrant labourers coming from the tribal areas of Natal and Zululand. And I was fascinated by the fact that they'd taken Western instruments like the concertina and the guitar, and they'd reconfigured them, they'd retuned them, they found new ways of playing them, and created a whole new genre of guitar and concertina music, which was unique, indigenous to South Africa.
Yeah.
And when I stumbled on this, I was 14 years old. I was playing guitar, and I just thought, wow, I'll drop everything if I could just learn to play like this. And so that was my opening, and it was in the face of many geographical and racial and cultural segregation laws, the Group Areas Act, the Separate Amenities Act, many other acts that prevented people from performing in places, especially geographically. I couldn't perform in a black area or an Indian area or a coloured area. I had to stick to the white area. I couldn't perform in public with a black performer. So we were relegated really to performing, in private venues. It could be a school, a church, your living room. We did a lot of embassy, consulate shows.
Yeah.
Every weekend, different embassies had cultural evenings, and we would go there and perform. That's me and my partner Sipho, playing traditional Zulu street guitar music. And then university halls, which were privately owned, we would play. So it was a very tough time because public performances were not feasible. But we found ways around it and slowly started to build up a following. And by the time Juluka was launched in 1979, we were singing in English and Zulu. We were not played on radio because that was against the segregation rules. But we built up a following among students and migrant workers.
That was actually part of my next line of questioning. There's no radio stations willing to play your songs, but so would you say then you had a bit of initially you had a bit of an underground following?
No, we had a total underground following in the beginning. We were played by one radio station beaming out of a homeland called the Sea Sky.
Yeah.
And we went to number one with our first single, Africa Kalabangwele, which means Africa, you're innocent or weeping.
Yeah.
And but that was it was basically broadcasting into thin air. There were no. It was an unknown station. It was just a tiny little independent station operating out of a rural homeland.
Right.
But apart from that, we just really didn't have any. In fact, I didn't even know that we had a hit. It was so small. I learned later on that it kind of climbed a very, very questionable set of charts. But anyway, apart from that, we were not played on the national broadcaster at all, and it was really just building up. In fact, I went on to become an anthropologist, and my friend Sipa was a gardener, and it was only on our fourth album with Juluka that we had a top 40 hit in England.
Yeah.
And we were offered the opportunity to perform, and so I stopped teaching, and he stopped gardening, and we became full-time musicians in 1983.
So here's the thing though, right? Fast forward to the late 80s, a few years later, you've sold millions of albums and songs around the world, and you had such a following that, and I don't believe this, you've got to tell me if this is true, allegedly Michael Jackson cancelled a show in Lyon in France because you were performing at the same time.
Yeah, well, what happened is we arrived in 1987 in France, and it was the first time that Le Pen had actually got 15% of the National Assembly. It was a shock for France. He had extreme racist right-wing views. We came out of an anti-apartheid struggle. Yeah. We arrived in France. We played. Our first show was the Angoulême Jazz Festival. We then played at the Cercle d'Hiver in Paris, and we just became overnight the darlings of the media. 18 months later, we had sold 1.3 million albums in France alone.
Wow.
We outsold Michael Jackson, Madonna. Nobody understood it. To this day, I just think it was timing. We had a very strong anti-racist message. We were an integrated band. We were singing in English and Zulu. We had songs to Mandela. We had, it was basically a very fortuitous, happy, meeting between us and the French political psyche, which was dealing with anti-immigrant sentiments, the first, emergence of the extreme right National Front. Yeah. So we became the darlings of SOS Racisme, which was a national youth group that was launched to fight and to support immigrants in the country. And we broke all attendances at the Bourges Printemps Festival outside Paris. We had 17,500 people. And then we were asked to play in Lyon, and Michael Jackson had also booked the same day to perform. We sold out a 4,000 seater in half an hour. Wow. We were then moved to an indoor basketball arena of 16,000 seats, and we sold out in 2 days. And then we were moved to an outdoor stadium, and we sold 35,000 tickets. And because of his production, Michael Jackson required, I think, to sell about 8,000 or 9,000 tickets just to break even, and they decided to cancel. Wow. So the Lyon Daily Entertainment newspaper carried the headlines. The Lyonnais prefer the white who wants to be black more than the black who wants to be white. It was very funny. There was a true happening in the life of Johnny Clegg.
Wow. Now, you mentioned a couple of moments ago Nelson Mandela there. Now, you wrote Asimba Anger with him in mind. He once joined you on stage mid-performance. How did that feel?
Yeah. I wrote the song during the state of emergency in 1986 in South Africa, and in 1994 we had our first democratic elections, and 3 years later I was touring in Germany, and the French government through an advertising agency said, look, we're wrapping up the symposium on development in Africa, and we're just, if you guys are able on this particular date to help us, close the symposium with the show, and we looked at our tour dates and we said, no, we can do that, it's fine, and we accepted the fee, and we arrived at the show. We set up our equipment in the hall, and all the delegates filtered in. We went on, we did our show. I didn't know that Nelson Mandela had been the keynote speaker, or that he was there, and at the end of the show we sang our song to him, and he walked on stage, which was just an amazing moment for me as a singer-songwriter. I think the pinnacle of my writing career. And he came on stage, and I gave him the microphone. It's immortalized on YouTube, and it was really funny in a way, because when I started singing the chorus, the crowd kind of roared, and I thought, wow, they know my song. It's amazing. But he was walking on stage behind me. I didn't see him.
Okay.
That's just the story.
So your blend of music, which is pop and it's African, it's Zulu, among others, it's broken down barriers in your home country. It's fair to say. Would you describe that then as your legacy?
Yeah, it's we were forcefully separated from one another. My writing has always been about trying to find wholeness and togetherness and some kind of becoming part of a greater thing. Because we were always islands, living apart from one another. So, as a songwriter, you know, I would reckon that would be my contribution to the long road that we went through to try and find each other. You know, my music has always been about finding each other. I was always trying to find conversations between whether it's Celtic folk music and Zulu street guitar or dance and Mbaqanga music. You know, I was born in England. I grew up in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and South Africa, and I had a very, very good crossover upbringing. I was open to many different things, I suppose more than my contemporaries were. And my mom was a jazz singer. My dad was a crime reporter. I grew up in a very interesting household. A lot of ideas. You know, every night over the dinner table, discussions and events and things analysed, and a lot of ideas really is floating. So I was really curious about the world, and I was open. I was shaped by my time. I was shaped by my country. I was shaped by the history of the subcontinent that I grew up in.
Johnny, you're performing 3 dates in Canada. They're coming up. The Parliament-Carme in Quebec City, 16th of October. Then you're going to Toronto on the 18th, and then back into Quebec to Montreal on the 19th at the Place des Arts. What can your fans in Quebec expect from your show this time round?
It's an autobiographical show. It's songs which are put together over 4 decades of my writing. First as Johnny and Sipho, that is as playing traditional Zulu street guitar music and concertina music, and then into Chivuka, the second decade, the third decade, Johnny Clegg and Savuka, and then the fourth decade is Johnny Clegg. So we have those 4 kind of representations. Hopefully I'll be able to bring I have brought my stuff, my videos, and I have 8 videos which I present as part of a kind of historical overview. So there's an audio-visual component, there's a storytelling component, and obviously a 40 years worth of selected songs which outline this journey.
Yeah, good stuff. Now listen, thanks for talking to us, and good luck with the fight, and keep making the music. We're all with you, and keep strong.
Thanks, mate. Thank you so much.